Welcome to the Texas Agriculture Law YouTube channel. I'm Tiffany Lashmet. Today we're here on the final day of April 2025 to talk through some of the biggest ag law stories that have happened this month. As always, we'll make sure and have notes in our show notes below, and those will contain links to blog posts, articles, and other information we've collected about each of these topics. So with that, let's jump into our list for April. Number one, the Texas Society for Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers just released their annual Rural Land Value Trend Report. This is a great resource for Texas landowners, real estate agents, those in the market for buying rural land in Texas, and for lessees as well, as it gives a ton of great information about land values around the state. This includes average land price values as well as average lease rates, and it's the only publication I'm aware of that reports average hunting rates for many parts of the state. So it's a great resource. It's available. We have a link to it in the show notes below. If you're interested in seeing the value of land in your part of Texas, feel free to check out that resource. Number two, we're going to talk about a recent decision from a federal court in Iowa that has upheld the constitutionality of the state's ag-gag law. Basic background, this law was passed and basically attempts to prohibit trespassers from entering farm and ranch operations and recording activities there. That law was passed by the state of Iowa, and then it was challenged by a group who claimed it was unconstitutional as it violated the First Amendment. To be clear, there have been a number of legal challenges to similar laws around the United States. Many of those have been struck down on First Amendment grounds. However, that was not the case in Iowa. A federal court in the Southern District of Iowa recently granted a motion to dismiss the constitutional challenge. Interestingly, I thought the way the court wrote the opinion, what they said was, while we realize that gathering information by doing things like recording is speech that is protected by the First Amendment, the constitutional protection that speech is afforded changes when it occurs during an unlawful trespass. So I think a very interesting analysis from the Iowa Court of Appeals. We're actually going to have a full blog post analyzing that opinion coming out in the next couple of weeks. We'll link to the opinion in the notes below. Next up, a little bit closer to home, there's been movement on a dispute that's been going on between the United States and Mexico related to water deliveries on the Rio Grande. This is something we've been following for a number of years, and basic background is that there is an international treaty signed between the United States and Mexico that requires deliveries of water be made in 5-year cycles. So in this current 5-year cycle that we're in, Mexico is obligated by treaty to provide the United States with about 1.75 million acre feet of water. Even though we're currently nearing the end of that 5-year cycle, Mexico to date has only provided about 600,000 acre feet. So there's a significant lag in those requirements. It was announced just this week that there would be a substantial delivery of water from Mexico made by October. Specifically, they've agreed to deliver 420,000 acre feet by October. That will put a substantial dent in the shortage that they have, making their deliveries somewhere in the neighborhood of about 800,000 acre feet. For the remaining shortage that they have under that treaty obligation, they've announced that they're going to make some deliveries, monthly deliveries at the Amistad Reservoir and at Falcon Lake to help make up that about 800,000 acre foot deficit. So definitely something to be watching, something that a lot of producers, landowners, agribusinesses in South Texas have really paid a lot of attention to. It's garnered national attention as well, this treaty situation. Number 4, we're going to talk about, this is one that's been in the news. I got a couple of questions at this at a program I was at just last week. The United States Department of Agriculture has announced today that they have the Trump administration has dismissed all of the criminal charges that were pending against the Maud family in South Dakota. These came about. The Maud family has some property in South Dakota, and there was some concern that a fence that they had that had been in place for decades was actually blocking access to some federal land. And a new survey was done, and that all resulted in there being both civil and federal criminal trespass charges filed against Mr. and Mrs. Maud in South Dakota. Again, it was announced this week that those charges are going to be dropped. They will not be criminally prosecuted for this. We're waiting more information on any sort of civil claims that may arise, but those criminal charges have been dropped. And then number 5, we're going to talk about a proposed change to the Federal Endangered Species Act. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has published a proposed rule that would amend the definition of take under the Endangered Species Act. And you may be aware that that definition of take is currently written as pretty broad. It includes the term harm. And the proposed change to that definition would remove the word harm from the definition of take. Lots of details here, but kind of a quick summary is if they go ahead and do go through and finalize this proposed regulation, it will narrow or pare back the scope of the Endangered Species Act because of how broadly courts have interpreted that word harm. So currently it's a proposed regulatory change, and there's a notice and comment period open through May the 19th. So if this is something that you're interested in commenting in, again, we'll put notes below so that you're able to do that. Make sure you meet that May 19th deadline. Once they have their comments, the Fish and Wildlife Service will consider those comments and likely will eventually issue a final rule that will potentially amend that Endangered Species Act definition. With that, thank you so much for joining us for our monthly roundup. We hope that this is helpful in keeping you up to date on the agricultural law news around the country. Make sure you tune in to our Ag Law in the Field podcast and subscribe to our Texas Agricultural Law blog as well to keep up to date on these and other stories related to agricultural law.